There were three of them. And one declaration before we begin with the permission of the person about to interview me. So he came with this file full of papers about what to say to me or ask me. And I have taken away his file. So he's been fidgeting since then. Now, this is something a gentleman had done to me 2.5 decades ago. When I first came to speak on a political stage, he took away my papers just before I went up to the mic to speak. In fact, he tore it. So this is me returning the favor back to your gender.
So good morning, everybody.
Vijay, it's afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, everybody, for inviting me to be a part of this function. Congratulations, Divya, and all the best, Neti, for the next year. I was involved in Ficci in the last 6 months, and in line with what Smriti ji said, I must say that we in Ficci, I keep asking people there as to what is flow and what is the impact of flow. Thank you. I must say that what I've seen here truly is very inspirational. I think there's a lot of learnings for Ficci from flow. I think the energy you see in the room here is truly inspiring. I mean, doubling the membership from 600 to 1200 in 1 year, I think in Ficci it would take probably a decade to do it, but it's fantastic work. Congrats and all the very best. So today morning, I had 3 days ago, I had accepted to, a few days ago, accepted to be a guest of honor here. It's truly an honor. Thank you for inviting me. And I thought it'd be a usual Ficci style event. I would prepare a speech, and then Smriti ji would speak. And then day before, Divya called me and said, Smriti ji would like to do a question answer session. That started me trembling 3 days ago. I looked up some of her interviews and I said, this is not going to go well. So I was already nervous as to...
It's going well so far. So a big round of applause to him.
So today morning, in a bit of panic, I went and somebody I knew who was a predecessor in one of the roles that she has, with accomplishment run. She's done so many roles.
Not a predecessor.
Sorry, successor in one of the roles that Smriti ji had run. I'm not this doesn't bother me because she's taken down all her interviewers and all the interviews that I looked up seeing in the last few days. So I'm prepared for this. But I went to meet her and I said, what would enthuse Smriti ji to come up with something new? And she said two things. I'm going to start off with one of those. So she's, as I said, the lady I met today morning was a successor in one of the organizations that Smriti ji has successfully led in the past. And she said she's truly fascinated with the various hats that Smriti ji wears, how she switches seamlessly from one hat to the other and brings energy into all these roles. She was in Davos last week, she was a minister last year, she was an actress before that, and she says she's truly amazed with the energy and the depth that she brings into each of these roles. So if I could start off by asking you that, how do you manage to multitask in such a diverse manner?
I think it's very inherent to every woman on the planet that irrespective of where she is, who she is and how she is, if presented with an opportunity to learn, if presented with an opportunity to grow, every woman grabs that opportunity. The difference is that when they grab that opportunity and they truly add a new leaf or a new page to their life story, whether at the end of that story or midsection they have a mic and an audience or not. That is the only differentiator between me and the women who are sitting here. Everybody has a story of struggle, of strife, of achievements. The only difference is some get to speak about it and some live the rest of their lives in islands.
Fantastic, thank you. Smriti ji, if I could come, you said speaking about chances given to women. And I guess it starts at the top, and I think the Honourable Prime Minister has really moved the needle quite a bit with the Women's Reservation Bill in Parliament. But still, if you look at the facts, the statistics, India is at 149th rank out of 180 countries globally in terms of number of women in the lower house in Parliament. I hope I got my facts right.
The Global Gender Gap Index report is what you're possibly quoting, which is actually flawed.
No, this is not. This is just the number of women membership in Parliament.
Yeah,
so this is simple facts.
No. They are computing that in terms of political equity, and that's where they are wrong. And by the way, the person who did that report just got sacked at the World Economic Forum for sexual harassment. The anomaly in it is this, that they compute political equity in a country on the basis of only women in parliament. But actually, they don't even compute that completely. They do not count the number of women who are in the council of ministers, who are ministers of state. They do not count women who get elected to office in our state governments. They do not count women MLAs in states. They do not count women who get elected in panchayats. Now, if you start computing all of this, only in our panchayats, 1.5 million women have been elected to office. The reason why they do not compute this enormous number that India has to offer is that this decentralized, democratic, and representative aspect of politics does not exist in every other country on the planet. So India faces this demerit and does not have women who are elected in panchayats get computed in the political equity. And that is where the disparity is. If you start computing those women and their contribution, our rank in fact will surpass many across the globe. And they do not count the fact that the highest office in this country held by the President of India is that held by a woman. They do not compute that.
That's fantastic answer. But would you still say, if I could push you a little bit, that we are still underrepresented as women in
I think that
positions
we
of
are
leadership?
half the population. So yes, when we are 50% on a table, then you will say that truly we have representation on tables, in houses, or at the workplace, which reflects the equity in terms of demography. But ultimately, even if you look at panchayat system, the reservation is for 50%, but close to 65% get elected to office. So women also win in general category seats. And that again is yet another example of how women need not only win when there is affirmative action, they can win when they go shoulder to shoulder with men.
You've spoken about switching subjects. You've spoken about gender inequality or gender bias in technology, in artificial intelligence.
Yes.
And I guess this is still a subject that is evolving in today's day and age. Could you speak a little to that as to why
I
you say
think
this?
world over only 8% of women, especially if you compute the tech giants in the US, only 8% of their CTOs are women.
So,
And technology and STEM, and Soumya Swaminathan is here who's better positioned to bring different perspectives to it. Only 29% of working professionals in STEM across the world are women. So wherever there is a pipeline issue and entry-level jobs to be given, where the real struggle is to build momentum for a company, everybody is happy to hire a woman. The minute the position comes with money and power, you see the number of women coming down. There's silence in the room because everybody agrees.
Speaking of global technology giants, recently you did meet Bill Gates. So did you ask him that question?
In fact, Bill is the only person that I've worked with personally for the past 6 years. And he's somebody who's not leading his company anymore. But most of the gender justice work that I do the world over, he's an equal partner in crime on those issues. In fact, there is a project that we've given Dr. Swaminathan on looking at the heat wave impact across public infrastructure, especially Anganwadis, and how the government needs to prepare in terms of maintaining those public infrastructures. That has been funded in consonance with Bill. So the agenda was that one, I get more and more Indian research institutions, Indians per se, who can research on issues that have a global impact. I'm currently doing close to 25 projects with Bill. So,
congratulations, that's inspirational. Maybe switching subjects again and perhaps moving to
isn't he doing so well without the paper?
moving to something a little, perhaps, I don't know, personal, political. You, after a fantastic win where you defeated Rahul Gandhi in 19, you suffered, I guess, a loss in 2024. And this is not about the loss, but how do you manage to so quickly recover from the loss and, move right from the next day your tweets and, just moving on to all these activities that you described? How did you manage to bounce back? I guess it's an inspiration for so many people.
No, I don't define myself through the prism of my success or my failure. I don't need validation. I don't need a certificate, a medal. I don't need people who will say how great I am to feel good about myself. And I don't care when somebody says I'm crappy just because they felt like demeaning me. Couldn't care less. That's the impolite way of answering it. I think as human beings, and especially as women, we are ingrained in our upbringing as to how to seek validation. How to seek validation about our behavior, how to seek validation about how we look, how to seek validation about how we are in a family, in a community, how to seek validation as a mother, as a wife, how to seek validation as a friend. So every interface a woman has, it is accompanied by this need to get approval. I have no such trouble. So I guess that's why I can pick up the pieces. But the 4th of June was a turning point in my life, especially there's a very small podcast that happens on Aaj Tak in Hindi, and the gentleman reporter there is a very senior, seasoned reporter, Kamlesh Singh. He actually went into the details of my work in Amethi for 10 years, and especially my work as a member of parliament for 5 years. Now, in 5 years, I helped build 1 lakh homes. In 5 years, I helped build 3.5 lakh toilets. In 5 years, I helped connect 4 lakh farmers to the Indian Treasury. I built Amethi's first Chief Medical Officer's office. I built their first 200-bed hospital. I got their first MRI, CT scan machines. I built the first fire station. I built the first medical college. And at the end of the day, the reporter said, "Didn't you do too much?" And I think that's when I thought to myself that I was not in the business of politics. I was in the business of serving people. And there's a huge distinction in that. Because when you're a politician, you're thinking how to get the next vote. You're thinking how to win the next election. But if you truly look at it as a medium of service, then you couldn't care less whether you win or you lose. You incessantly then work. So I was working in Amethi even when I lost in 2014. But if you look at my political graph, even the first election I fought in the year 2004, the Chandni Chowk Lok Sabha constituency was not a winning constituency for the BJP. So it's not as if in Lok Sabha elections I ever got an easy seat. In fact, I got the toughest ones. And somebody who has been at the peak of the media career could always get choosy and picky and say, no, 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 I want something very nice and simple and safe. I didn't want to be known for being the the one who's mollycoddled into a particular position, who's glamorized into a particular position. I'm somebody who has worked my way up from the trenches, and I like that. I would rather have the respect of my colleagues and the respect of my karyakartas and my leadership than have the comfort of an AC office as a politician who's reduced to just cutting ribbons. That is not the person I am.
Going back to the various, I guess, ministries positions you've held and the work that you've done there, I think one of the things that stands out, even as per many of what we've read in the media and many of your colleagues, one of the things they admire you for is the way you brought in technology in assessing malnutrition in children and the changes you brought in the Anganwadis there.
In fact, one of the first interventions I had from my office in technology was when I helped build India's first MOOCs platform. This was in the year 2014 when I took over as Minister Education. And I still remember Satya Nadella was visiting, and before him, somebody from MIT came and met me. And this gentleman scoffed at India's potential to create their own MOOCs platform and said, we at MIT can really help you. It's a very complicated issue. I think maybe he was not used to a brown woman sitting in the mantri's chair. And I just looked at him and I asked him exactly how many Indians does he think are there in the IT sector in the US as we spoke. Then came Satya and he said, what happened and how can I help? And I told him, in-house, give me 4 or 5 engineers who can help build India's first in-house MOOCs platform. And he did. And that's how we built the platform, and we built into 2015. I remember many bureaucrats telling me, ma'am, why are you building something where everybody is going to school and college? And then came COVID. And I think that's when everybody realized the potential of that platform. Today we have over 2 crore students on it, with 1,000 courses that are being given. At that time when I was in office, I had the privilege of digitizing the entire curriculum and creating, in fact, a language model as well, so that across languages, whatever knowledge systems are available in medicine, in engineering, then could be cross-referenced and could be used by students across the country. In fact, given my Chennai Connect and the lady that you met this morning before coming to speak to me, between her and I, we decided, how do you introduce Tirukal to TBSC and make students across the country write about it? So there were many such things and opportunities that I could leverage with and without technology.
Fantastic. Many congratulations. You had spoken about when you were, I guess, you're the first woman minister for when you led the under the unit, your Minister of External Affairs, Mr. Murthy, you had gone to the Hajj as the first woman minister there. Could you, as a minority affairs, first woman minority affairs minister in our country, can you speak a little to that experience when you went to the Hajj?
Well, I in fact infused technology even in Hajj Yatra. We created the first ever app which can help track the medical entire history of every Haji, because we saw most of the medical challenges that the Haji faced there is because the doctors there and the doctor, let's say in the district or in the local hospital or clinic that they were at, could have no point of referencing each other. It was called Hajj Suvidha. I think it's still functional. And we also included an interface between the family member of the Haji and the Haji, so that when they're overseas, and especially the poorest of the poor and those who are elderly, have one challenge of not, speaking to family or engaging with them. It's very expensive for a good 40 days of the travel and the religious pilgrimage, including how to locate and tag their bags. Now this is something somebody from a local masjid or somebody from a local dargah has never had as a technology experience. So we introduced that. I was invited by MBS to that beautiful country, and when I was invited, my only request to them was, this is how I dress, and could my culture be respected enough so that I am called as I am, with no changes asked. I think MBS was more than kind. They not only accepted my request, I became the first ever non-Muslim minister of minorities and first female who went all the way outside the holy mosque, knowing the boundaries, the limitations of their faith and mine. I was there to meet the entire bureaucratic staff that assists our Hajis. In fact, we had neighborhood country reps come up to me and say, can you ask a few questions about us also, so that we can also get some facility thanks to India. So it was I think it's historic moment indeed.
You also spoke about something humorous that happened there. It was a Hindi interview, so my Hindi...
Yes, so there is a holy mountain there, and I think that in the kingdom, they were not used to a woman going in a sari with her bindi and her Mangal Sutra right up to the holy areas. And then suddenly there's this whole crowd that started running towards me. So the kingdom's police and security personnel thought that somebody's got very aggrieved by me and is coming to possibly attack me. And they kind of ring-fenced me and trying to take me into my car, till somebody started shouting, Tulsi! And then I told the security, I said, listen, this is a Tulsi problem, this is not a security problem. So I was lucky that the show was actually beamed across 56 countries. And it is very, I think it kind of unnerves you when somebody says, no, we were there was fighting in Afghanistan and we used to watch you. I'm like, you're fighting and there's a Taliban and you're watching me. I'm like, but there were people from Fiji, there were people, the show got translated in Swahili, so I had people from the African continent, so everybody running, and security alert was too high in the kingdom. And then they were like, what is Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahu Thi? I'm like, I'll brief you on it later. So yeah, that was a very surreal moment. Because Muralidharanji thought that somebody's out to kill me, and I was like, sir, relax. He's like, what is this? I was like, this is Saas Bahu.
So when she took away my papers and my well-prepared questions...
But isn't he doing so well?
she gave me a grace mark. He said she would, after a few questions, we'd be allowed to open it up to the audience for questions. So I think that's the...
But before that, ladies, he's really overwhelmed with a room full of female achievers. Let's give him a big hand, because he's been a great sport.
So I got to do a 10-second plug for Ficci before
because I tell you what, on the top of his list to start the conversation was to wish me a belated happy birthday, and I'm still waiting.
Yes, so big round of applause, belated happy birthday to ma'am.
So Divya, two final questions. One is, this is something that she had asked me to ask you. What happens at, I'm not going to mention
What,
your age.
Sasbo?
No. I'm not going to ask you whether you're going to go back into acting.
I always say in life, never say never. You know, it is a privilege to be seen by people in 56 countries. That show shut down in 2008. Shashi Tharoor, who's actually in the Congress party, when he was in the United Nations, he wrote this big article in the Times of India as to how that half an hour ceased violence in Afghanistan. People put their guns down. And I think if you look at that contribution, that is a contribution I'm very proud about. And I believe that it became even a scope or a landscape where we could say things which were not at that time permissible in conversation. We spoke about literacy for older women. I mean, there was a grandmother who got literate through the program, and we spoke about it. That if women at that age never had an opportunity in the early 30s or early 40s to study, we actually showcased these issues of marital rape, of women who wanted to get educated, of women who wanted to get into enterprise, of girls who were getting ragged. So it was done in a very Sasbo fashion, but it was a contribution. So I think that your life will never be rid of mistakes or hiccups. But you should be proud of everything that you've done, because if you're ashamed of yourself, how can anybody else take pride in knowing you?